Hello guys and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be giving Australia an empire. So recently I've done a few empires. I've recently done Russia, I've done France, but today we are going to be giving one to Australia. And the goal here is going to give maybe not all the countries an empire, but I want most countries to at least get one empire. So if you're liking the series, please make sure to subscribe and let's get into it with their first declaration of war, which is going to be on Papua New Guinea. So they just declare war on the country. The capital is what? Port Moresby? I don't know, but it's Port something and it's about here. So Australia makes land and captures their port. If you didn't know, Papua New Guinea is actually an incredibly diverse country with the highest number of languages in the world in this tiny country, many tribes, things like that. So the government is already surrendered, and so is the army. But the island itself, as I said, is controlled by tribes of people with little to no contact with the outside world. So Australia is going to have a bit of trouble pushing in, although in the end they are going to win the war, as these tribes have no technological weaponry and are easy for Australia to roll over. So another thing I should mention here is, one, alliances don't exist, so it doesn't really matter when in Oceania, but in some of my other empire videos it does. And two, this is completely unrealistic, so in real life Australia is probably never just going to go imperialistic and start annexing countries. So with that, they now begin island hopping campaigns, basically just giving out ultimatums, either join me or die, pretty much. Most of these little islands agreed to join them, and in this scenario we're also going to be assuming that global warming never gets too bad to the point where they sink, and they just stay the same the whole time, because in real life a lot of these islands won't be islands for much longer. With that, Australia has still a smaller empire, but they can definitely expand it. And how will they be doing that? They are going to declare war on New Zealand. With that, they make a landing near Wellington and begin to push up the Northern Island. They capture Auckland and push around the coast. Once their Northern Island falls, New Zealand, their government, all of that is already beginning to give up. But after Australia makes multiple landings on their larger island, the New Zealand government sees no point in fighting this war, as it's just going to lead to even more people dying. So there we go. Australia's made themselves a decently powerful empire already. In size, I'm pretty sure they're 6th behind. What are you behind? Brazil, maybe? Let's see here. Yeah, it's Russia, Canada, 3, 4, 5, yep, 6. They're probably still smaller than Brazil, but they're definitely cementing their position as 6th. And they're going to be going ahead and declaring war on a country that will extend their population by over double. That country is the Philippines. Now in real life, once again, the USA would most likely join in here, but in this scenario, we are going to be having no outside interference in their wars, so the US will be staying out. And if you're wondering why they would go for the Philippines, they can make a decently easy naval path to land in the islands, and I don't think they're strong enough to want to go to war with Indonesia yet. After gaining the strength of the Philippines, though, that might be a different story. With that, they make a landing in the southern Philippines and capture their southern island, from where they start making an island hopping campaign to go more and more north, until eventually Manila is captured, the capital of the Philippines, and the country surrenders to Australia. So yeah, as I said, Australia, they gained some land area, but their population has really gone up here. Very, very much gone up. With that, they are now feeling ready enough to declare war on Indonesia, and they do so. But this is going to be by far their most difficult war yet. They're even going to have Indonesia push back in some parts, although Australia will most likely hold their borders to the point where Indonesia can't push into their mainland. With that, the war is declared, and Australia just instantly begins to send in mass amounts of troops to the island of New Guinea. Indonesia was not expecting Australia to invade yet. They thought they'd have at least a few more months to prepare, but Australia decided to rush it, and this goes in their favor, as maybe they were a little less prepared, but Indonesia was a lot less prepared, giving Australia the major advantage. With that, they begin some island hopping campaigns to a lot of Indonesia's smaller islands, but as they begin to get closer to the island of Java, Indonesia's most important island, the Indonesian Navy, which isn't amazing, but it's able to combat Australia along with their land forces and keep them at bay. With Australia plans their largest naval invasion yet onto this island right here. I kind of forgot what its name is, but they make their landing, and after about a week of fighting, Indonesian troops are either encircled, surrendered, or killed. With that, they begin to plan a landing on the island of Borneo, which goes successfully as it's less defended, but Indonesia's actually making their new capital here, so this is still going to hurt them and their morale a lot. They didn't actually station that many troops in Borneo, as they're more focused on holding down Java. With that, they actually send in some troops to recapture some of the islands near Java. Which one was that? Here we are. Okay. But with that, Indonesia begins to cement its troops down, and Australia really doesn't see any hope of landing on Java. So they begin a plan to push into the island of Sumatra. They make their landing, and at least not with my knowledge, Indonesia has any too big instabilities. But I would say in this scenario, Australia is stronger in every way, and Indonesia has already lost some land. So with them being cut off navally from Java, their most important island, Sumatra falls, and the new island hopping campaign is made again, except this time it gets even closer to Java. Australia decides to make 3 naval landings on the island, one in the west, one near Jakarta, and one in the east. These meet up, encircle Jakarta, capture the city, Indonesia's capital, and the island falls. With that, Australia just decides to downright annex all of Indonesia for their own country, as they see it as a good way to finally begin to actually make a huge impact on the world stage. That was their war to make them, a contender for a world superpower. With that, they now control all of Oceania, or Australia, depending on what you call it. And they decide to declare war on a few more countries including Malaysia, Brunei, and Singapore. With the Borneo part of Malaysia and Brunei having fallen. This is nothing more than a few weeks of pushing in. This half of Borneo was not well defended. The Malay Peninsula was much more well defended, but it still won't be enough to stop the Australians as they begin to push in. With that, Malaysia surrenders, and once again, Australia is just annexing all these countries as they want to get as much influence over the world as they can before someone finally puts a stop to this. And that stop is coming soon. With a lot of Southeast Asian countries seeing Australia as some kind of evil country who just wants to invade them and take all their land. And with that, they make an alliance against Australia over here, including Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar. Now, would this happen in real life? Most likely not. But once again, this is a fictional scenario, so some things are going to be happening that wouldn't ever happen in real life. With that, Australia doesn't know about this alliance, and and declares war on Thailand, leading to, as I said, all of these countries joining in. With that, Australia might finally get a real battle with some stronger countries like Vietnam and Thailand on the blue team. Before full blue team troops can arrive, though, Australia is going to have a pretty easy time pushing up into Thailand. They make a landing in southern Vietnam and Cambodia, beginning to push into Cambodia with a lot of troops. Population-wise, who would have more here? It would probably be about the same, with Australia having some heavily populated countries like Indonesia, Philippines, and Malaysia, while the blue team has Myanmar, Thailand, and Vietnam. Vietnamese troops quickly arrive to push out the Australian invaders, but in Cambodia, it's a pretty difficult fight, although Australia is losing more manpower and personnel here, so they might not want to retreat that naval invasion. They push up the entirety of, I guess you could call it the tail of Myanmar and Thailand, push up to take the city of Bangkok, but the battle is lost, and this leads to heavy blue team pushback as a small Australian army is encircled in Myanmar and destroyed. With the Australians being pushed back until eventually the full Australian military has arrived and is ready to take out all of Southeast Asia. They begin to push back in, deciding to focus on Myanmar this time instead of Thailand as it's much less defended. And they capture a good portion of the Myanmarese tail, along with threatening Bangkok once again. With that, Thai troops attempt a new encirclement, but what they didn't see happening was the Australians hoping that the Thai would make this encirclement of their troops, pushing down and encircling the encirclement. With that, a lot of blue team troops are destroyed. The second Battle of Bangkok happens, ending in a red team victory, and that is terrible for the blue team. Bangkok is a large and important city here, and losing it will not be good for, well, most importantly the Thai, but all of the blue team. With Australia begins to push across the coast with their heavily superior navy, beginning to push into Cambodia, although Vietnamese troops are holding them back successfully. The same cannot be said for Thailand and Laos, along with Cambodia, who are all capitulating to Australia one by one. Cambodia surrenders. Vietnamese troops push back in, but they can't gather enough land to reset up the country. With that, a lot of southern Laos also surrenders, and Vietnamate, it's like Vietnam, but it's the capital of Laos, is captured, and the entire country surrenders. With that, once again, Vietnam is forced to send troops into Laos to hold it down, as they manage to meet up in the north with Thailand and Myanmar. But this loss is going to be seen heavily, with multiple blue team countries having already been taken by Australia, and Thailand on the verge of total collapse. With that, they're reduced down to pretty much just jungle. They surrender, allowing Australia to push more into Laos, and cutting off Myanmar from Vietnam. They start a stalemate with Vietnam, in which the country actually begins to push back the Australians, while the Australians are focusing on taking over Myanmar. This is going incredibly successfully as they begin to snake around the coast, which is where a lot of Myanmar's greater cities are. After capturing, a good portion of their major cities, their capital actually isn't as important for Myanmar. It's more of a show-off than an actual heavily populated city. So although some Myanmarese tried and pull a Vietnam on the Australians with guerrilla warfare, at this point, about 2/3 of Myanmar has been captured, and those are the more important 2/3. So they'll just leave them there to try and guerrilla warfare them out while focusing on Vietnam, and they do this by spearheading and capturing Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam's largest city. With that, Vietnam is pushed out of Laos, and a lot of the more important land over here in northern Vietnam is captured, leading to a lot of their army surrendering, or just falling to the Australians. The Myanmarese don't really stand a chance here, so their main hope is just if Vietnam wins this, we can get our land back. But sadly for Myanmar, Vietnam is not winning, and honestly, once Vietnam falls, I can just see Myanmar surrendering instead of trying to reclaim their country. With that, Vietnam is being pushed out of Laos and Cambodia until all troops are taken out of the two countries to defend the homeland. But this doesn't work in Vietnam's favor, as Australia just keeps pushing after the surrender of the blue team. With that, a majority of Vietnam is captured, and although there is a lot of guerrilla warfare, the country surrenders, leading to Myanmar surrendering, and Australia's first peace treaty in which they don't annex everybody being made. With that, they push up a good portion of the Myanmarese coast, along with just a ton of land out of Southeast Asia. A lot of the rest of it decides to unite, as Thailand's pretty much dead, same thing with Laos and Myanmar. Vietnam will most likely survive here and be the main country in this new union. With that, Australia annexes probably over half of Southeast Asia, whilst the rest is forced into a union under a puppet government of the Australians for two main reasons. One, the Australians see it easier to just put in one really strong government than four weaker ones in four weaker countries. And two, with these guys being heavily weakened, if all of them were independent, China would easily push in and take them all. With that, as I said, Australia has won the Great War of Southeast Asia, leading to the Australian Empire pretty much, being finished. This new puppet, as I said, is technically given independence, but it is under an Australian, I guess you could call it a regime, under an Australian elected governor / president / there won't really be elections, so it can't be called a president. More of a dictator, really, but of course Australia, like any other country, claims that they have a president. With that, Australia annexes a majority of Thailand, about half of Vietnam, about what the South was at one point. They annexed the entire country of Cambodia, and also a lot of the more important lands in Myanmar. With that, Australian expansion is pretty much over. At this point, they're gonna pull a Dutch and just try and reclaim as much land as they can from the oceans as their main way of expanding, as even if they claimed all of Southeast Asia, I highly doubt they could defeat China even with all this newfound power. They couldn't defeat India either. So now they're just working on improving relations again with the West or the East, whatever side they pick. In real life, they're fully Western leaning, but once again, fictional scenario, some things can change. So I do hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.